You have to pass my preliminary test first, and then go to the company to participate in the audition." I smiled carelessly, but the smile did not reach my eyes. "Why do you think I can still act in your movie?" "Yes." Why would he think that I would fail by working with the same person again? "Oh, I forgot to mention that my first film Monochrome was directed by Quaid." He smiled and hummed, "Are you still angry with me?" I gave him a big eye roll, accompanied by a curse word, and turned my head and left. However, in the end, I returned back to the country with Quaid. After reading the script, I only had one sentence in my mind. "Ah, this is really interesting." As for that night, when Jaden found me coming out of Quaid's room, we were really practicing for the show. Rather, it was a test given to me by the Quaid. The red marks on my collarbone, which Jaden minded a lot, were all made by me in order to better integrate into the character. I pinched myself viciously and endured despite the pain. "We're here." The staff's curt and concise words pulled me back to reality. I calmed down, thanked him politely, and then looked up at the judge's seat. There were 3 soft chairs in total. Sitting in the middle was Quaid. He crossed his legs and looked sideways, with some interest in his eyes. The seat on his right was empty. It seemed that someone was not there because they had something on, but their clothes were still on it. It was a gorgeous fur coat that looked somewhat familiar. On his left side, it was so surprising. Jaden was sitting next to him as he stared at me expressionlessly. The most troublesome thing about costume drama was makeup. Sometimes it would take a long time just to set the hairstyle alone. However, it was just an audition, so I only changed into a film costume. My makeup was still the light makeup I did before I came, and I just reapplied lipstick. I opened the dressing room door and did not expect Jaden to wait for me at the entrance. He had changed into a dark red robe with black embroidery on his cuffs. His expression was solemn and dignified. At that moment, I thought I had really seen the third prince from the movie Bewitching Concubine. When Jaden saw me, darkness slowly appeared in his eyes. His Adam's apple seemed to move a little. "You look gorgeous." I pursed my lips tightly and said nothing. He stretched out his hand and seemed to want to touch my face. I suddenly backed away, and then under his flabbergasted gaze, I closed the dressing room door. Bang! As expected, there was a rhythmic knock on the door outside. Jaden's knock on the door was also very characteristic. It was steady and sturdy, with a moderate rhythm, like the swinging sound of a pendulum clock. I lifted my head, took a deep breath, and said sullenly, "Stop knocking. I won't come out even if you knock until your fingers are injured." There was silence outside, as if he was thinking, but soon he began to knock on the door again. However, his movements were much lighter. My frustration instantly overwhelmed me, and my voice was a little furious. "Can you please leave first? I'll go out after you leave." As soon as I finished speaking, the atmosphere was so quiet that it seemed as if the air was still. The sound of breathing was audible. After a while, Jaden said, "Although this scene is about the female lead cheating on the emperor with the third prince, the female lead has experienced too many betrayals and bloodshed, so now she has gone into a state of extreme nervousness. In short, crazy is the word to describe her." The person who auditioned for this scene just now only showed the charm of the female lead when she deliberately seduced the third prince, but did not illustrate her madness. Later, "You just need to." He suddenly paused and smiled. "What am I worrying about? You've always been good at acting. I should trust you." His voice was a little blurry through the door, but it sounded sincere. However, it sounded particularly harsh to me. I felt like I was seriously ill. I would rather Jaden scold me, be disgusted with me, and blame me for the guilt of that night's wild downfall than nonchalantly teach me acting techniques as if we did not do something that hurt her girlfriend. Plus, it seemed he wanted to maintain a romantic relationship with me for the long term. I clenched my fingers, and Suzette's face suddenly appeared in my mind beyond my control. My heart tightened. I suddenly felt that the whole situation was meaningless. "Jaden, I regret it. I shouldn't have been obsessed with you. Just pretend I didn't ask you to keep me as a mistress that night. We're both adults and should know how to stop while we're still ahead." "Natalie," I said firmly, "after today, don't contact me privately except for the necessary official business." I lowered my eyes and uttered the words clearly, but suddenly felt exhausted. "From now on, we mind our own business." Before I could finish my words, the door was unlocked with a click. The next second, Jaden's tall and well-built body squeezed in instantly. The area before my eyes suddenly darkened. Before I could react, he grabbed my wrist and pulled me into his arms. "I don't agree," I heard Jaden's hoarse voice, unfriendly as usual. But now his breath was a little unstable. He cupped one side of my face with one hand and forced me to look up. That extremely unemotional face gradually appeared in my sight. I became enraged and was so furious that I cursed. "It's none of my business whether you agree or not." His gaze immediately turned icy like a blizzard. He said word by word, "Natalie, you provoked me first." When I was halfway through swearing, his impactful statement forced me to stop talking. He maintained his position and looked at me quietly with his sharp eyes. He suddenly asked, "Do you remember how you confessed your love to me on Twitter a year ago?" My eyelashes trembled, and I bit my lips while looking at him. He stared at me with darkness in his eyes. With punctuation. "You said 15 words in total." My heart was pounding with some inexplicable emotions building up inside me. I closed my eyes and shouted, "I don't remember." "Sooner or later, Jaden will belong to me." My out-of-control voice and Jaden's calm voice sounded at the same time. I looked up at him, and my face was totally flushed, and some fragmented memories flashed through my mind. In fact, the confession of love to Jaden I posted on Twitter a year ago was an accident. We were working in the same industry. If I really confessed my love openly to a top star on Twitter, others would inevitably suspect I wanted to create hype. Not to mention, the film I acted in with Jaden was in the promotional period. That move definitely gave haters a chance to attack me online. The truth was, I was drunk. I was never a fan of alcohol, but that day was Jaden's wrap party, and I could not help making an exception. He only stayed with the film crew for 10 days, but I could not help falling in love with him within those short 10 days. I got drunk that night. When I got home, I shakily took out my phone, logged into my main account, and boldly posted on Twitter, "Sooner or later, Jaden will belong to me." But, perhaps at that time, Jaden also thought that I deliberately acted as a couple with him for popularity, putting on a show to tell people that we fell in love during filming, and setting an affectionate persona for myself. In his mind, the whole incident was staged by me. Otherwise, there was no other way to explain what happened later. During Jaden's 10 days with the film crew, we got along very well and often discussed the script together. When we had different opinions, he would listen to me calmly and then remain cool-headed when analyzing how the scene should be played out. When we thought the same, he would look at me calmly with a faint smile, portraying the unique elegance of an ink painting. His face was as perfect as jade, and he was a natural beauty. He clearly treated me differently at the beginning. After the confession, I nervously went to him and wanted to go with the flow and confess my feelings to him in person. However, he ignored me and gave me an excuse to leave before I could say anything. He acted as if I was a stranger. The following year was no different. He was even colder, which made me try my best to pursue him. Yet, he never even looked at me from the beginning to the end. A strand of my hair scattered, and Jaden naturally raised his hand to hook it behind my ear. His action made me regain my thoughts. Jaden looked askance at me. "You even mentioned me after you confessed your love to me on Twitter that day." He paused and laughed faintly. 3 times. He looked at me as if he had other thoughts. "As if you were afraid that I wouldn't see it." I retorted, "It's all over." My ears were so red that they could bleed any time. I was really drunk at that time. When I realized what I had done, I planned to delete the tweet to destroy the evidence. My mushy brain made me look at Twitter repeatedly, thinking that the message could be deleted by posting it 3 times. Jaden smiled slightly and wanted to say something more. Suddenly, there were 2 heavy knocks on the door. Shortly afterward, a very unfriendly voice sounded. "Are you guys going to join the audition?" I was stunned. It was Quaid.